Coming up on this week's Club 904, yes, it's the off season, which means we only have one episode per week, which also means that we have a jam-packed episode at that. We are going to run through the litany of prospects currently on the field in Mobile, Alabama for the Panini Senior Bowl, who I believe could be Jacksonville Jaguars. We may, or at least we're shooting for, let's hope that the cell service cooperates, have a live visit from one Jake Asman, who is covering the Senior Bowl as we speak on Radio Row. Plus, we'll update you on the very latest when it comes to the coaching carousel around the NFL. A whole lot to get to over the next hour. Then we got Talent Talks that I'm also hosting after that on Action Sports Jacks. Let's get after it on this Tuesday in Club 904. What is going on, party people? Welcome into this Tuesday, January 27th edition of Club 904. I am your host, Mia O'Brien. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. As always, be sure to like, subscribe to our friends at Action Sports Jacks. And of course, you can also follow me at Mia O'Brien TV. You also can subscribe to the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook, where you find not only my weekly updates, the scoops from around Jaguar land, but also our Discord channel, where we have had a lot of fun throwing around some prospects who were at the Shrine Bowl this past weekend out in Texas, and those prospects that are on the field for the next 3 days for workouts and Saturday's Panini's Senior Bowl. I believe it's the 75th annual. We'll ask Jake Asman. He is scheduled to join us at 1:30 of ESPN New York and the Jake Asman Show on YouTube. Jake, of course, covers a team that's going to be picking twice in the first round, and so he's got the lay of the land of where these prospects may actually fall, contrary to some of our fantasy ideas and mock draft machines and what have you. But before Jake joins us at 1:30, I'm going to run through position by position some names at the Senior Bowl that I am keeping an eye on as potential targets for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And look, I understand this is a regime that is Rams East. They don't have the presence at the Senior Bowl that some of the other 31 teams around the league have. They also don't have a first-round pick, as I've already alluded to. So I know that it's a different draft preparation season in Duval than ever before, but we're going to get after it. We know James Gladstone loves hunting those day 3 gems, and so maybe we can uncover those, or maybe a day 2 pick with 4 selections slated for the second day of April's NFL draft for the Big Cats here at the Senior Bowl and on this episode of Club 904. But as Hamby alluded to during the handoff from the Brent and Austin show, do want to get you the breaking news here on this fine Tuesday. Another lazy hire. I'm not going to bury the lead. It's another lazy hire in the league when it comes to the head coaching vacancies, of which there were 10 this offseason. The Buffalo Bills have promoted their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. Yes, the same franchise that last week the owner sat there and said it was the coaches who picked Keon Coleman, the former Florida State wide receiver, with the first pick of the second round 2 years ago in the draft. It was the coaches, not Brandon Beane, the retained general manager, that decided to pick a player who has not necessarily lived up to the billing on or off the field. And what did they do? They went out and hired one of those coaches to be their next head coach. Copy, paste, rinse, repeat. The world we live in. But as a couple users over at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook Discord channel have already pointed out, it's easier for the owner to keep paying somebody that they've already paid and they are already scheduled to pay here in 2026. So maybe we shouldn't fault them, because once upon a time, that was also the way of thinking here in Jacksonville. That is the way of thinking in many locales around the NFL. And so it will be Joe Brady at the helm of the Buffalo Bills, Brian Daboll slated to become the OC of the Tennessee Titans, so long as he does not get the Raiders head coaching job. And Grant Udinski, out of the running in Buffalo, had already pulled his name out of contention for the Cleveland Browns vacant head coaching opportunity, and he will be back in Jacksonville as the OC for a second season with a shiny new contract and a pay bump. We still do have to keep tabs out in Arizona Although, as subscribers to the O'Brien NFL Notebook know, I'm pretty confident. Mike LaFleur, the Rams OC, will be getting that job at some point in time. He is amidst a 2-day interview process with the Arizona Cardinals top brass as we speak. He was wined and dined last night. He is in a more formal interview setting as we speak, 3 hours behind us out in Arizona. I think it's 3 hours. I'm going there in a few weeks. I should probably know the answer to that, but I digress. My expectation is that Michael Bidwell, the owner's obsession with the Rams organization, trying to somehow, some way make his mark in the NFC West by pulling from another NFC West team. It's going to happen. Anthony Campanelli, though, the Jags DC, is one of the other finalists for this job. Reports that Monty Ossenfort, the general manager, much like Brandon Beane, also retained. Was not his fault that the Cardinals just absolutely fell apart for most of the season after starting 2-1, hang the banner. That apparently the report is that Monty Ossenfort's preferred candidate is Anthony Campanelli, but he also was behind the Jonathan Gannon hire, which again, that tenure lasted just 3 seasons. This is an interactive program, folks, as we start making our way to the Senior Bowl portion of today's program. Want to make sure you guys are engaging with us, whether that's on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you may be. Our friend Dell hanging out in Club 904. Let's see who's hanging out on YouTube. Robert, always hanging out. We are in the club. Grant is staying. Amen to that. Daniel says, good afternoon, Mia and fellow clubbers. So sit back, relax. Let's run through some names. We're going to have some fun here in Club 904 as we peruse the Senior Bowl roster and which players I believe could be Jacksonville Jaguars after this April's draft. Let's begin with the defensive tackle position, because to many, I know that is the biggest need for the Big Cats as of this writing, with both Eric Armstead and Devon Hamilton just 1 year remaining on their deals. The depth behind them, a big question mark coming out of the 2025 campaign. The good news, it's as if James Gladstone knew this, defensive tackle and interior defensive line, depending on how you want to, whatever you want to call some of these guys in the position they play, it might be the deepest group in the draft, let alone in Mobile this week. So some names to keep an eye on this week, which practices today, tomorrow, Thursday, will be live on ESPN as well as NFL Network. And again, in case you're just joining us, a lot of you guys just jumped in the club. Jake Asman scheduled to join us at 1:30 live from Mobile. We begin with DTs. Just going to run through a couple of names. We'll dive into some of them. Alphabetical order. Tim Keenan, Alabama. I think it's a name that you should know. Penetrating interior defensive lineman, rugged, 332 pounds, 6 foot flat. If Trent Baalke was still the general manager of the Jags, I think he gets a look by basis of being from Alabama and the Crimson Tide. The same can be said for a player who is a little bit closer to home, figuratively and literally, in Caleb Banks of Florida. One of my favorite players in college football last year, not this past season, that year prior, the final full season of Billy Napier, in which the Gators obviously won 8 games, the November to remember, which you probably don't want to talk about right now, but that's okay. The John Summerall era is here, and Caleb Banks will not be a part of it. He has opted to declare he is going to the draft. He is at the Senior Bowl right now after an injury-plagued final season in Gainesville. He is someone who I am fascinated to see, not just his play on the field, because when he's at his peak, he is as pocket pushing, sack getting, and interior defensive lineman as you're going to find. He also, in my opinion, if you want a more rugged edge, could probably kick out outside if you needed him to on certain downs. If Trent Baalke was still the general manager, I think he absolutely is of consideration for the Jaguars at pick number 56, their first pick in the draft. But he's no longer the general manager. And so the measurables don't matter as much. Caleb Banks has not measured in yet, at least according to the Senior Bowl website. So if anybody has those measurements and wants to throw them in the chat, by all means, would love to show them here on today's program. He, of course, was injured throughout the course of the 2025 campaign. And so I'm curious what he looks like, what his conditioning looks like. Is he able to participate in the Senior Bowl? So Caleb Banks file that one away, maybe not as a pick for the Jags, but as a defensive tackle that just, stick a pin in that one. All right. So some names that I actually am let's do one more that I think, unfortunately, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, folks, but Lee Hunter, Texas Tech, was a guy that in my preliminary mock drafts, I'd mocked to the Jaguars at 56, 320 pounds, 6'3", one of the fastest risers in the class, obviously part of that $7 million front or whatever it was at Texas Tech. Shout out to the oil money. He was in the back half of the first round in Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft. Now, as Daniel Jeremiah also went out and said earlier this week, his first mock draft, which is based off of what he's hearing around the league, his own scouting assessment, where he believes prospects could go, it's 1.0. It's going to change. He's in Mobile right now. He's going to get more intel. These prospects still have to go through the pre-draft process. So Lee Hunter may be there at 56. But the fact that Daniel Jeremiah already has him in the back half of the first round says to me, a lot of these names we're going to run through today, and I didn't even include D'Angelo Pons, who was scheduled to be at the Senior Bowl, but the Indiana corner has withdrawn because he just played in the national title game last week. Like, that's an example of a guy that I think like 3-4 months ago, maybe the Jaguars have a shot at in the second round. But because enough people recognize he can play football, and this is a class that you're going to hear time and time again. Typically, there's 10 to 15 players with a first-round grade, but there's 32 first-round picks, but only 10 to 15 of them have first-round grades. This year, it may be more like 8 to 10. You're going to hear that a lot over the next few months, and that is why Lee Hunter's he's a good football player. So there is a chance he goes in the first round, so I'm not even going to bother with the Lee Hunter conversation. So instead, we're going to begin, no, not with Derek Moore. We're going to get to you here momentarily, Edges. We'll begin with another player who started his career at Florida before transferring to Mizzou, and that is Chris McClellan, who, of course, the Jaguars, if they so choose, got an up-close and personal look at when Mizzou played in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl against Virginia back in December. 315 pounds, 6'3", a guy who his pass rush win rate went from 3.8% in 2024 up to 10.3% in 2025. So still kind of raw. His sack production really spiked this year with 6 sacks. And if your goal, if you're a Jaguars fan and drafting one of these defensive interior linemen, is to find someone that's going to not just push the pocket, but is also going to get after the quarterback, he's a guy who in his final season looks like he is ascending. Now, at the same time, he's also been pretty consistent in stopping the run. I had an 8.1% stop rate in 2025. He has missed just 6.6% of tackles for his career. Interesting prospect that, again, we have to remember the Jaguars have 1 pick in the second round and they have 3 picks in the third round. Ultimately, I think that's around the range he's going to fall in. So file Chris McClellan away. Here's a guy, day 3. Oh, here's a guy, Mel Kiper. Goodness. Grayson Holton. And we've talked about him a lot at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook. Another plug to subscribe. Free 7-day trial is ongoing. Grayson Holton, a little bit undersized. And I know anytime we see an interior defensive lineman sub 300 pounds, we go, oh, he could be Aaron Donald. It could be Aaron Donald. This guy's not Aaron Donald, but he does have the potential to be a rotational interior defensive lineman. It was, according to people out in Oklahoma, the heart of that Sooners defense. He was Mr. Oklahoma, 8.5 sacks over the last 2 years. So, again, I know some of you are looking for these crazy double-digit sack numbers from these interior defensive linemen. That's not reality. Active hands, good athlete on tape. Just the type of guy who I think if you're looking for value, yes, we are still looking for value, even if Trent Baalke is not the GM of the Jags. I think Grayson Holton's an interesting one to take a look at, and he will be at the Senior Bowl as well. I want to get to the edge position, and I want to get to a player that I believe, in my opinion, regardless of position, this is the guy who needs to be, as of this writing, January 27th, as we are live on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. If he is there at 56, if he's there at 53, maybe you want to throw a couple of those day 3 picks into the pot and try to trade up for him. This is the guy that I think the Jaguars need to go get. His name, I want to be clear, is not Gabe Jackass. It is Gabe Akis of Illinois. Rugged edge defender. Gets after the quarterback, 4-year player at Illinois. Yes, he wasn't the starter, but he contributed since his freshman campaign in Champaign-Urbana. A quote from going into his sophomore season from Gabe Akis: "My mentality every play is to run through other people's faces. He has the ability to go inside and outside. He was a state champion wrestler, 20 sacks over the last 2 seasons, 85 pressures, 5 forced fumbles." In my opinion, and we're going to run through some other names when it comes to this edge rusher group, you have 2 options. You've got the more rugged, not quite Trayvon Walker size, but no one really is. You've got the fastball off the edge, but maybe you feel like with BJ Green and Danny Strigow with a off season of seasoning, maybe that's what they are. There's 2 different groupings when it comes to this edge class. And I believe that Gabe Akis is firmly in the rugged, but can play multiple positions up and down the line. And that's something the Jaguars obviously value when it comes to Trayvon Walker. Will they value it when it comes to players in this year's crop? Michigan, Derek Moore, 6'3", measured in this week at 254 pounds. This has him at 260. So just note that one. 78 pressures, 14 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So comparable, a little bit less though than Akis's production. Obviously, it was with a Michigan team that was led by Sharon Moore. This is Derek Moore, no relation. So it's all good. It's all good, gang. He had a 33% pass rush win rate in true pass rush sets. And that is why a lot of people believe, again, given the treasure trove of riches they had, or maybe didn't choose to deploy at Michigan, maybe his best football is ahead of him. His comp is Derek Hall, who I think is going to get a bag after he's cut loose by Seattle this offseason just because they have too many dudes they have to pay. Interesting guy. Again, if you want to go for more of that rugged edge mold. How about another one who's kind of cut from that same cloth? Let's go back to the Mizzou well. Let's go back to that group that was here in Jacksonville earlier this season, or earlier this year, I should say, for the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, and Zion Young. Zion Young, 262 pounds, 6'5" when he measured in at the combine, or the Senior Bowl, yesterday. He's a prototypical rugged guy who's probably still got room to grow into that frame. A lot of or high motor. You're going to hear those words a lot too. 25.6% win rate on those true pass sets. Again, 33%-ish when it comes to Derek Moore, another rugged guy. Which brings me to those speedball off the edge. A little bit different size, but we're going to run through some measurements for Danny Strigow and BJ Green this time 1 year ago and kind of compare and contrast. I do want to note Romello Height, contrary to the mock draft machine that I just ran, he's not going to be there. Jaguar fans, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. He's not going to be there for the Big Cats at 56 because the Texas Tech edge rusher probably going to go before then. But hey, if you disagree, throw it in the chat. I see a lot of you guys lighting up the YouTube chat, and I'm going to get to your comments here in just a little bit. But that speedball off the edge is Mad Max. Yes. A lot of Iowa guys in today's program, and rightfully so. Scott Pioli is singing their praises in Mobile as we speak. We're going to read that tweet from him as well today. Mad Max, 255 pounds, 6'5" when he measured in yesterday. So 6'5", 255. Listed at 263. Neither here nor there. Because I know another former Jaguar edge rusher who was 6'2", 252 pounds, who also had the treasure trove of pass rush moves that I have seen with my own 2 eyes that Mad Max has. Max Llewellyn may have the best spin move in this crop of edge rushers. And again, he's not that rugged edge defender that perhaps Akis is just because of his build. I think that, well, yes, they're both in the 260-pound range. I just think that Akis carries himself as more of that rugged guy. That's not really Max's game. But in terms of if you want someone who is out of the box ready, has all the pass rush moves, and yes, maybe not the run defender that you want in a Trayvon Walker complement, perhaps, which again, I think is kind of wishful thinking because there's only one Trayvon Walker walking around the universe. I think that Llewellyn is a very interesting prospect, probably going to go around the 4th round. As Bengals and Brews, who I pulled from a lot for today's program, great job by them. I don't even know them, but great job by them putting out a lot of information about these prospects. Yes, he can be a little overly reliant on that spin move. And yes, he also played on an Iowa defensive line that had waves of pass rushers. But I think if you could get him in the 4th or the 5th, this is a guy who had 6 sacks last year, 12 over the last 2 seasons, 2 forced fumbles this past year. He just plays like a madman. That's why we call him Mad Max in Iowa City. So I'm interested with him, and that would be your day 3, right? So if you go a different position on day 2 with pick 56 and the 3 third-rounders, I think in the 4th round, Max Llewellyn, or maybe you want to double dip at the edge position. Before we get to linebackers, and I burst your bubble about that position as well, let's take a look at who else has joined us here on Club 904. Yes, Jasso, in case you missed it, Grant Udinski is staying as the Jaguars OC. We're not even going to dive into that Bills situation anymore than we already have. What's up, AC Jag? Thanks for hanging out with us. I think it's a good chance, yes, that we do see Anthony Campanelli back as the defensive coordinator for the Jags. Robert wants to talk about Landon Robinson, the Navy defensive tackle. He was at the Shrine Bowl last week, Robert, so we'll talk about him on a different podcast. So we'll talk about him later. Hef says that Caleb Banks, who we already mentioned earlier, is every bit of 3 technique. I agree. I just think that when push comes to shove, he may actually be the best athlete of the entire defensive tackle class. And so that's where I think he has a bit more position versatility than people give him credit for. But maybe I'm just projecting in the way that, I don't know, many hoped Mason Smith would be able to play multiple positions. And we'll see if he's on the roster next year here in Jacksonville. Hef, yup, Gabe Akis and that wrestling background. Yes, he was a state champion as well. And Robert says Yannick like from Max Llewellyn. To the linebackers we go. I'm going to pull up a chart for you guys to kind of set the table. And when I set the table with this, I also want to note, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. Let's go to that real quick. All those measurements I threw out there with the edge rushers. Last year, BJ Green at the combine, 6 flat, 259. And then Danny Strighouse, 6'5", 255 in the pre-draft process, according to NFL.com. And so that is smaller than all of those players that I mentioned. Obviously, those two guys were priority free agents. These guys will be drafted by the Jaguars. All right, to linebackers. Devin Lloyd, when he was going through the pre-draft process 4 seasons ago, 6'3", 237 pounds. I'm going to warn you, none of these guys are that size. And at least, in my opinion, 3 of them are going to go in the first round, which the Jaguars do not have a first round pick. But there is plenty to be had in the linebacker crop. I do believe that CJ Allen is kind of a foregone conclusion. He will be a first rounder, ditto to Sonny Styles. Arvell Reese, Jake hopefully can join us at 1:30, and then we'll get more on him. But again, those guys won't be there for the Jaguars in the second round. Jacob Rodriguez is an interesting name, of course, the Texas Tech captain, Mr. Red Raider, the former Virginia quarterback. He had the highest run grade in the country of any linebacker. And I think that that's obviously important at the position. But in this world that I am presenting to you on this January 27th, I am presenting a scenario in which Devin Lloyd is no longer a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. You have to find a way to replace Devin Lloyd, which is difficult given the athleticism and given the fact that you look at where James Gladstone's coming from with the Los Angeles Rams, and they just pulled Nate Landman off the scrap heap out of Atlanta and gave him this nice, nifty new contract extension because he's looking pretty darn good. So that is where I'd be interested to see if the Jaguars dip their toe into the linebacker well in the 3rd round, which is where I believe Rodriguez is probably going to be drafted. Another name to watch, probably more 4th round, is Aiden Fisher out of Indiana. Not at the Senior Bowl this week. Rodriguez will be, but file those names away. Also note these next 2 names because I am rather intrigued by both, and they both will be at the Senior Bowl this week, beginning with BYU linebacker Jack Kelly. Jack Kelly was injured half of the season in 2025, and yet, folks, he had the most quarterback pressures of any linebacker in the Power 4 with 29. He had 9 sacks over the last 2 seasons. Or 9 sacks last year, 15 sacks the last 2 seasons. Just to be fair. Weber State, where he started. Shout out Coach Campo. Also was at Weber State once upon a time. We love Coach Campo around here. And then transferred to BYU. First team All Big 12. First team All Big Sky. This is the guy who I think you can get in the 4th round. Now, we'll see how much money he makes at the Senior Bowl with his performance this week. But that's a guy who goes in the 4th round. He's not Devin Lloyd, but maybe he can at the very least provide that production getting after the quarterback that Devin Lloyd was able to be deployed to just go get the quarterback in Anthony Campanelli's system. Maybe Jack Kelly is that guy. And, of course, a lot of this is dependent on where they believe Jack Kaiser, last year's 4th round linebacker pick, ultimately will land in the 2026 system. Last linebacker that I want to keep an eye on at the Senior Bowl. This is someone who my sometimes co-host on ESPN Radio, Ian Fitzsimmons, has been singing Bryce Betcher's praises since August. And part of it is his daughter goes to Oregon. Shout out to Ian. And Ian has gotten to know Bryce with his relationship with Dan Lanning. 2-sport athlete, played baseball at Oregon, walked onto the football team, was drafted by the Astros coming out of high school. We're going to go back to that chart here in a second because Bryce Betcher right now is projected as being somewhere between the 5th and the 7th round. And this is someone who has played 584 career snaps on special teams. He is Mr. Oregon, team captain, very good open field tackler. Let's go back to that linebacker overall thing. Let me take down this ticker too so you guys can see. So this is run defense on the bottom. That's coverage. Look at Bryce Betcher. You get him in the 5th or the 6th round, hanging out there in that right corner. I'm just saying, folks. Unfortunately, our friend Jack Kelly, who, yes, can get after the quarterback, he's hanging out in the bottom left, but that's all right. Stats measurements. Turn on the tape. I think both those dudes can play. I think both have a shot at being drafted by the Big Cats, perhaps after their performance at the Senior Bowl this week. We've still got a lot to do. I'm getting texts from Jake, so we're going to check in and see when Mr. Asman is going to join us live from Mobile. Then we will run through some other position groups that I'm keeping my eye on out in Mobile at the Panini's Senior Bowl. Don't go anywhere. Club 904 continues right after this.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Most of us know how to throw. But you need to know what to throw. I'm not talking about footballs, baseballs, softballs. We're talking about those items you need to recycle. Republic Services explains it easy. Recycling simplified. 1. Know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. 2. Empty, clean, and dry those materials. It takes an extra minute, but it makes a big difference. And 3. Don't bag it. This makes the recycling process faster and more efficient. This is a look at the Republic Services North Florida Recycling Center. You can make this process even more efficient. By utilizing those 3 steps, Republic Services can help you become a better recycler in your home. Learn more at recyclingsimplified.com.
If you look good, you feel good. And the medical professionals here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics are here to make you feel your best. I'm on camera every week, and I have a confession to make. I'm not always confident in my appearance. Can you see my dark circles? Is my makeup highlighting my fine lines instead of covering them up? I question it all. So when I found out about the wide variety of procedures here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics, I knew help was just one appointment away. Medical Director Dr. Megan Deacon Casey and her board-certified physicians have been using the latest in cutting-edge technology for the last 10 years, giving men and women their personal confidence boost. From Botox, fillers, Morpheus 8, and so much more. The hardest part was figuring out what I needed. Thankfully, the medical team walked me through what would work best for me through a free consultation. Come look and feel your best with the team here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Visit them at one of their 2 locations, either over in Ponte Vedra or on the south side.
Welcome back into a Tuesday edition of Club 904. Appreciate the over 200 of you hanging out with us live on the various channels of the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. We are going to be joined by Jake Asman, and hopefully the cell service and the audio sounds just wonderful coming from Mobile, Alabama. Practice is set to begin at the Senior Bowl, the first day of practices at 2:30 p.m., and Jake is live out there, and so hopefully we get a report from one of our good friends and fellow Ithaca College Bombers. Will Parkinson, another friend of the show, is also with Jake. He also may join us at some point in time. Hey, we appreciate you hanging out with us, though. And of course, as always, this is an interactive program. So while we wait for Jake, I want to run through a couple of the questions that I've seen, beginning with one that I did write down that if we had 2 minutes of time, we'd run through, which is the potential for Max Crosby. I know it's been floated out there by a couple reporters here, this idea of multiple first-round picks being used to acquire the Raiders edge rusher. From what I have been told, that is a bit lofty of an asking price, and not just an asking price, like what actually it's going to take to move Crosby out of Las Vegas. Don't be surprised if it does not take multiple first rounders. He's 29 years old, or will be 29, I should say. He's in the prime of his career, to be fair. It's a lofty contract. Could the Jaguars move some money and acquire his services? Yes. Have there been calls made simply just to get the floor, get the base understanding of how much it may cost to acquire Crosby services? Absolutely, yes. I think if you're the Jaguars, your schedule has been expedited when it comes to Devin Lloyd potentially walking. You get a third round comp pick, Travis Etienne potentially walking. You could get a comp pick. If Buster Brown walks, we're going to talk about that coming up here in a second. You get a comp pick. The Jaguars back in November did not believe they were in the comp pick conversation in that stage of the build just yet. But after winning 8 straight games down the home stretch of the season, winning the AFC South, those expectations may have shifted. And ultimately, while this is a deep defensive tackle class, I do think that, look, if you could give up your second round pick, right? And even if you got to give up the next first after that, which, by the way, shout out to James Gladstone for everyone who said, I can't believe he's giving up the first next year. He banked on, we're going to be competitive. We're picking in the 20s. This is not as deep, or I guess I should say it is a deep class, but it's not as first round top heavy as previous years. And so, you know what? There's not a big difference between pick 24 and pick 56. We're going to roll the dice and get Travis Hunter. Jake Asman is here, and he has a heart out. Let us welcome into the club, not just a friend of the program. He is a friend of mine, the one, the only, Jake Asman, hopping in with us. Look, I thought you were going to be on the practice field. I was worried we were going to be testing the cell service of Mobile. How are we doing, my friend?
Mia, I'm doing great. I am live from my Airbnb, which is near the practice field. I got my credential here. We're going to be headed out shortly when I get done with the conversation. The way they do the Senior Bowl, you've been before, right? So
I have actually not. I was supposed to go last year, and then if you recall, Liam Cohen was hired the Friday before. So plans change, rather. But I have been to Mobile, and I have been to the stadium, yes.
Yeah, so basically there's the media portion is in the convention center, which is downtown, but the actual practices are not downtown. It's by the stadium where they do it, or is at the stadium. So we're splitting the difference with where we're staying. So I was hustling to get back here where I knew I would have good internet and be able to do the podcast, and then could go and do the actual viewing of the practice, which starts at 1:30 local time, so about an hour from now.
Love it. Love it. You are the man, Jake. As you alluded to, you are going to be headed out to practice. So we're going to make sure we get you in and out quickly here on Club 904. But at the same time, you cover the New York Jets. So therefore, and also the New York Giants to an extent, given that you are the host of Sunday's programming on ESPN New York with Mike Tannenbaum, counting us down to Giants and Jets games up there in the Northeast. And so you've been covering 2 teams that will be picking in the first round of the NFL draft. The Jets will pick twice. So you have a much better lay of the land when it comes to where these prospects could go, as well as who is actually a first round pick, who is a day 2 or a day 3 pick. And so, Jake, just give us kind of your assessment, being in Mobile for about 24 hours now, what you are hearing in terms of the depth of this class. What positions will there be opportunities for the Jaguars to select second, 3 third-round picks, since they do not have that first round pick?
Yeah, it's definitely not a great draft if you need tackles, if you need a quarterback. And honestly, one of the storylines here in Mobile has been the lack of some of the star power that we've had in the past. I think the weather, Mia, has really affected the turnout from some of the top guys. You had also a couple guys who were going to be here that played in the national championship game, either on Indiana or Miami. And typically, when you play that late into the year, a lot of those guys don't go. So Ruben Bain, who originally committed, for example, he might be the number 2 pick to the Jets, let's say, in a lot of mocks. He's not going to be here. David Bailey, who was in the college football playoff at Texas Tech, he's also not here. You don't have a ton of quarterbacks anyway. Ty Simpson, who could go in round 1, he's still dealing with the broken rib, so he's not here. So the top QB is probably Garrett Nussmeier, who has a chance to probably turn some heads. And a year ago, he's a first-round guy. Todd McShay mocked him number 1 overall, and now is he a day 2 or a day 3 pick? So not a ton of star power. As far as depth goes, there's good linebackers, there's good safeties from talking to some draft people around here. It will be fascinating to see who kind of emerges, because I feel like in the past there's all eyes on particular prospects, and just talking to people, I don't get the sense that there's anyone specific that people are honed in on as oh, this is the guy you got to watch. It feels like it's much more like who could emerge, when you start watching the first of 3 practices that gets underway in about an hour.
With Fernando Mendoza all but slated to go number 1, you could say that the draft starts at number 2 with the New York Jets. With no Dante Moore in the field, who are the Jets as of January 27th taking with that number 2 overall pick, and then the dominoes fall from there?
It's a great question. It feels like it could come down to 3 defensive players if you just go by what the early consensus is. Again, I mentioned 2 of them. Ruben Bain out of Miami. We all watched him arguably be the best player on the field in that national title game. He was sensational. I think David Bailey from Texas Tech could have something to say about it. And then the popular guy that you've seen in the early mocks is Arvell Reese, who's a bit of a hybrid player. I'm sure the Jets, if they took him second overall, would play him at edge, and they'd ask him to add some weight and just say, hey, you're an edge, go rush the quarterback and go do your thing. I feel like it's those three right now. You could argue, hey, should the Jets just take a wide receiver in that spot? Do you take Carnell Tate? Do you take Jordan Tyson? Is too early to do that? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're the Jets, you don't need an offensive tackle. You got, as bad as they are, you actually feel good about both your left and right tackle. Their first round picks they've invested the last 2 years in. You don't have a number 2 receiver right now next to Garrett Wilson. So in some early mocks, you're seeing Tate from Ohio State go number 4 or go number 5 even to the New York Giants. I know Tennessee certainly could be in play for a wide receiver as well. So, if these guys are going to go 3, 4, or 5, maybe 6 in some of these early mock drafts, well, the Jets, could they just do it at number 2 as well and say, hey, we're going to get a big-time player for whoever our quarterback is, beef up our wide receiver room. So I think there's a lot of directions they could go, and there's no consensus. So it's kind of fascinating to start to break down what they should do because there's a million different directions they can go. I think ideally they trade out, but I don't know which teams are coming up to number 2 because it doesn't feel like there's an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter in this draft that teams are going to be desperate to try and move up for.
I'm glad you brought up David Bailey. We just ran through 3 position groups of players at the Senior Bowl, which David Bailey is not, but 3 position groups, 3 positions that I think the Jaguars will have to target with priority picks, that being defensive tackle, which many believe is the deepest group in Mobile right now at the Senior Bowl, where Jake Asman is joining us from, edge, and then linebacker. Bailey, that Texas Tech defense. It's all over the map once you get past Bailey, who I think is going to go in the top 10, but then Romello Height, his variance in terms of where he could go, the edge rusher opposite him, Lee Hunter, the well-traveled defensive tackle. And I, by the way, love Skylar Gill-Howard, the other interior defensive lineman who made up that $7 million front seven. And that's not even including Jacob Rodriguez, who we already discussed, the captain of that Red Raiders defense. And so, Jake, what do you make of some of those names? Have they been talked about up there in Jets country? Please tell me, we do have a friend joining us as well.
Well, if you want to say hello to Dylan Terraman or Dom C, you can. I was pumped up, though, Mia, because I'm trying to scramble and eat some food, and Dom C just handed me some fantastic, I don't even know what this is, some sort of chicken and rice combination.
It looks like Chipotle, though, and you are Jake Asman, and you.
It does kind of look like Chipotle, which, by the way, Mia, has gone downhill. I don't know if you've had it recently. Man. Not only is the price increase outrageous, I feel like the quality of the food has gone down as well.
As long as the guac is still good, like that's been my one thing with Chipotle, I can't quit.
Yes, it's the guac I think is still very good, but half the time I go, at least to the one by me in New York City, they're out of chicken or they're out of steak, and it's a very depressing experience. All right, what were we talking about again?
Texas Tech, the defense.
Texas Tech.
Have you guys up there, first off, a couple of them are in Mobile. Second of all, just like your thoughts on that crew as a whole, because I feel like they have such a high variance once you get past Bailey in terms of where the rest of the league views them as pros.
100%. I mean, Jacob Rodriguez, was a guy that was getting Heisman Trophy votes, and I'm not quite sure where he's going to go. I know his height and weight came out yesterday. I'm talking with Dom, who's our draft guy in the Jets community. He said that those are really good numbers for a linebacker, so I think he's got the size that maybe could help his stock. They had such a good defense. I'd have to go into more depth in detail and see how many of their guys are actually draftable. Again, Bailey's not here, but Rodriguez is, so I'm looking forward to watching him on the practice field.
All right, give us names. Just names for you when you go out in about 20. Well, technically, you're going to leave here in about 5-6 minutes. But when you're out on the practice field in an hour's time, Jake, who are you keeping your eye on, regardless of position, at the Panini Senior Bowl?
Ooh, great question. Taylon Green, the quarterback from Arkansas, is a name that I'm certainly intrigued by. Cole Payton, the quarterback from North Dakota State. I'll start with just quarterbacks because, you understand the life as a Jet fan. All you do is try and talk about different quarterbacks and convince yourself one of these guys can actually not be the next Zach Wilson. Sawyer Robertson from Baylor is also a name. I already mentioned Nussmeier. I'm just trying to go through some top 75 guys that I think could be in play.
Because the Jags do have pick 56, and then while it's not necessarily top 75,
name a position group.
The position group. So defensive tackle, edge, linebacker are the 3 we ran through already.
Edge, I would say TJ Parker from Clemson is a guy that we could be looking at. Let's see, Zion Young from Missouri, another guy that I think is certainly going to be draftable. I'm trying to think. You said linebacker too?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Linebacker. Let's see who's here. Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh. We already mentioned Rodriguez. Caleb Elam's-Orr from TCU, maybe a third, fourth round kind of guy. He's here at the Senior Bowl. And then I don't know. I never know how to pronounce this guy's name. He was.
Oh, don't worry. We
teammate.
went through it. Is it Mr. Jackass?
Bryce Butcher.
Oh, Bryce
him?
Betcher. Oh, so
Betcher.
you have Bryce Betcher as a consensus top 75 guy.
I have him. Well, I shouldn't say I have him. The draft guy I trust the most, Dom C, who's off camera. He's got to wave hi to the Mia O'Brien community here. He has him. I will.
Okay, because we actually just ran
through. He has him.
Third
or fourth round. Yep.
Third or fourth round. Okay, because we just ran through him and a lot of other consensus, which now we're only going to subscribe to Dom around here. They had him more like fifth, sixth, which I was surprised, just given the athleticism and the high IQ and the fact that he's a willing special teams guy. I mean, he's played 584 snaps on special teams. But hey, listen, our friend Ian Fitzsimmons is going to be thrilled if he goes in the third, because Bryce Betcher has been his guy for months now, if not years.
I've done some shows with Ian too over the years too. I've heard him talk about that. And then he was right about Zabel a year ago. I remember at the Senior Bowl, he played great, and I did a show with him that night when he was down in Mobile, and he talked him up. And sure enough, I mean, we're gonna watch him in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks playing for the Seahawks.
Pretty crazy. It is pretty wild. Hey, are there any other corners perhaps, Jake? Because I'm wondering, I mean, I know with the Jets, there's a lot of positions of need. So I know you're looking at everything. So corners and then running backs, because that's going to be the next two positions we're going to run through here in Club 904.
Of the corners who are here, Colton Hood from Tennessee is a guy that is maybe a late second round type of guy. Julian Neal from Arkansas is another name. Other corners here, second round grade, Chris Johnson from San Diego State is here. Let's see. Keontae Scott is unfortunately not here from the U. He would have been a guy that it would have been fun to watch. Let's see. I think those are the main guys among potentially draftable. Maybe Malik Muhammad from Texas as well, third round guy. It could be more of like an off coverage type of corner is here.
Love it. Love it. Great stuff, Jake. Let the folks
It lacks
know.
star power, Mia. That's the big thing. I feel like in the past Senior Bowl, you got the quarterbacks, the Daniel Jones year, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix was a huge success here. A year ago, Jackson Dart, I think, did enough to start to have that conversation about him going from a second or third round guy to the first round. So I feel like it's wide open, and over the next couple of days, you'll start to hear some buzz about some guys maybe we weren't talking about.
Slaybot in the chat says Chipotle's honey chipotle chicken limited time offer was the last time they made a good bowl. Sad stuff. That feels like a good way to say farewell to our friend Jake Asman popping in live from Mobile. Jake, let the folks know, where can they find your coverage this week at the Senior Bowl?
On social media at Jake Asman, and then we're live every day from the Senior Bowl Radio Row every morning. We should have some of the prospects set to join us. So if you're into the draft, just Jake Asman on YouTube. You'll find a bunch of interviews and you'll find a bunch of draft-related discussion over the next couple of days.
Is there anyone who you have already proofed and been like, ooh, this guy's going to be a good interview? Like, I got to try to get this guy.
So it's funny, we have not seen any of the prospects up close. They've walked by, but they were in team meetings with where we were. So tomorrow is like the big media day, and they'll all be available. So it really kind of, for media purposes, it really kind of kicks off tomorrow, but the first practice is today, which is why everyone got in last night.
Love it. Love it. Well, we're glad you made it to Mobile. I know the winter weather has been wacky for the participants as well as the media members, and we are very excited to see your coverage over at the Jake Asman Show, ESPN New York, and much, much more. Appreciate you hopping into Club 904, brother man.
Mia, anytime, and I'm jealous that you've been in Florida, because I can confirm that the Tri-State was pummeled by this winter storm. It was rough.
Hey, it's 22 degrees here, or at least a feels like of 22. It will be 22 on Sunday with a feels like of 4 degegrees. So
freezing here. I couldn't believe it. It's colder here than it is in New York. I signed up to do this trip because I thought we'd get nice weather. So much for that.
I made the mistake. We went President's Day weekend a few years ago to Mobile, and it'll be warm. We could go to Destin. We could go to the beach. Not so fast, my friend.
Yeah,
so
not great.
Appreciate you, brother. Talk soon, and we will be following for your coverage.
You got it, Mia. Thanks for having me.
There he goes, Jake Asman, not only doing the most by making sure he was in the Airbnb with the perfect Wi-Fi, but with a rundown of some of the prospects he is going to be watching boots on the ground in Mobile, Alabama this weekend. Let's take one more break. When we come back, though, I want to address the following. And actually, you know what? Let me flip on over to this screen, because this is going to set the table for our final segment here on this week's edition of Club 904. Because we're going to talk corners. And if we're going to talk corners, I think it's important to set the table with this from Jordan Reed of ESPN. The Rams, where, of course, James Gladstone and Liam Cohen both derive from, have only drafted one corner David Long in 2019, during the first 2 days of the draft since Sean McVay took over as head coach in 2017. It's time. That is the case for the Rams. Is it the case for the Jaguars? That's coming up next here on this Tuesday edition of Club 904.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers. And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Most of us know how to throw. But you need to know what to throw. I'm not talking about footballs, baseballs, softballs. We're talking about those items you need to recycle. Republic Services explains it easy. Recycling simplified. 1. Know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. 2. Empty, clean, and dry those materials. It takes an extra minute, but it makes a big difference. And 3. Don't bag it. This makes the recycling process faster and more efficient. This is a look at the Republic Services North Florida Recycling Center. You can make this process even more efficient. By utilizing those 3 steps, Republic Services can help you become a better recycler in your home. Learn more at recyclingsimplified.com.
If you look good, you feel good, and the medical professionals here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics are here to make you feel your best. I'm on camera every week, and I have a confession to make. I'm not always confident in my appearance. Can you see my dark circles? Is my makeup highlighting my fine lines instead of covering them up? I question it all. So when I found out about the wide variety of procedures here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics, I knew help was just one appointment away. Medical Director Dr. Megan Deacon Casey and her board-certified physicians have been using the latest in cutting-edge technology for the last 10 years, giving men and women their personal confidence boost. From Botox, fillers, Morpheus 8, and so much more. The hardest part was figuring out what I needed. Thankfully, the medical team walked me through what would work best for me through a free consultation. Come look and feel your best with the team here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Visit them at one of their 2 locations, either over in Ponte Vedra or on the south side.
Welcome back. Final segment of the day here on Club 904. Before we make way for Talent Talks, I can already hear the UNF contingent talking out in the hallway. I will be co-hosting today's program with Richard Miller, so keep it locked here on Action Sports Jacks. But with that said, we've got about 8 minutes to run through about 5 to 6 other position groups on the field at the Senior Bowl this week in Mobile, Alabama. So we're going to run through these quickly. I'm going to start with that cornerback group. We just looked at this tweet from one Jordan Reed of ESPN. This idea of cornerbacks have never been a premium position for Les Snead and friends out there in LA, which once upon a time included Jaguars GM James Gladstone. And so with that said, who are some day 2 late round guys perhaps, or maybe James Gladstone breaks trend and he does draft a corner with pick 56 or one of those early third round picks from in this April's NFL draft. So let's run through some of those names. You heard Jake reference Chris Johnson, who is someone that a lot of folks are going to be focused on in Mobile this week, given that he played at San Diego State. The numbers, they are pretty darn good. First in PFF coverage grade. He allowed just 18 total receptions, 4 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, 0 touchdowns allowed. If those numbers, if there's too many of them there for you, I'm going to show you a second one. This is from PFF themselves. 0 touchdowns allowed this past fall, 4 picks, those 5 PBUs. For me, though, I'm not going to lie. While I'm interested in Chris Johnson and to see what he's got, There's two dudes for me, and I think that both could be available with one of those late third round picks, one of the fourth round picks. Hezekiah Massis out of Cal. I see Hef in the chat is screaming Cal DBU because that's what he and I have been chatting at the O'Brien NFL Notebook, and that's what we call it. We call it the DB. The real DBU is Cal. Hezekiah Massis, 6 flat, 5 picks, 13 passes defended. Not a misprint, folks. This guy is sticky in coverage. He jumps routes in zone. That's part of where the ball production comes from and that ball hawking nature. Another dude I'd throw out there who can play in not just multiple schemes, but he also is inside outside versatile, which is something that the Jags clearly prioritize between Jordan Lewis and Jarian Jones, is Chandler Rivers out of Duke, someone who, and I love this write up from A to Z Sports, in which when they were talking about Chandler Rivers, they just said that he's projected to go in the 3rd round, but this is a player who will be talked about more as the weeks go on. Smaller guy, 5'10", 185, doesn't play like it, physical. He was Mr. Duke. His ability to change direction on a dime, bait the quarterback, it's very evident. Buster Brown, and again, different regime that drafted him when he was going through the pre-draft process, was 6 flat, 196. Massis, 6 flat, 180. Rivers, 5'9", 185. Chris Johnson, who you see on the screen now, his numbers from 2025, 6 flat, 190. File it all away, different regime, but still bears merit. A running back prospect who you're going to hear a lot about this week at the Senior Bowl in Mobile is the much-traveled Mike Washington out of Arkansas. A lot of hype for him because he is the largest prospect at 6 flat, 228 among the running backs in Mobile this week. He does have breakaway speed, but as Adam Carter points out here, there are some question marks when it comes to the former Buffalo and now Arkansas running back in Washington, just because in terms of pass protection, in terms of his ability as a receiving back, maybe leaves a little bit to be desired. Some other names I'm watching for at the Senior Bowl at the running back position. Let's start with Kalen Black out of Indiana, played in a national title game next week. Former 2-star, started at James Madison with Signetti, great in pass pro, patient jump cut, maybe not the breakaway speed you'd see from Washington, smaller guy, but I love his game. And I know for those of you who also listen to the Locked On Jaguar Squad show with me, Marcus Ogden loves that kid. Seth McGowan from Kentucky. An interesting name at the running back position, not just because Liam Cohen was there, but because he's an older guy, has some things in his background that he has acknowledged, but he has continued to play college football, has found his way back onto the playing field. Liam Cohen knows him. People believe that if healthy and if it all goes right for that kid, he could be a 3-down back. You can get him in the late 3rd, the 4th. I'm interested what the background check is, especially for the Jags, who obviously pride themselves in their background check policy and that they're not measuring 40s the same way everyone else is at the combine. They are much more focused on sending out those private investigators to get the real scoop and then couple that with whatever the superpower is, as well as the tape itself, which Seth McGowan's tape, it jumps off the film. He's 5'11", 215. The comp many have thrown out there is Isaiah Pacheco. Tight end. I don't have any numbers for tight end, so apologies. You still see Mike Washington on the screen. Actually, I'll just take it off. 3 names for me at the Senior Bowl this week. Josh Cuevas from Alabama started at Cal Poly. I think it's important when we look at Cuevas, who can be an inline blocker, which is obviously critical for the Jags. Part of why they jettisoned Evan Ingram out was because they want guys who can not just be pass catchers, but willing blockers, line up in line. And I think with both basically Johnny Munt and Hunter Long being interchangeable by season's end, Quentin Morris will be your tight end 3, but who is that tight end 2 along Brenton Strange that can also be a receiving threat, or is tight end 4 behind those other 2 guys, one or the other, and then eventually ascends into that role to complement Strange? And also, how much 12 and 13 personnel do we want to see Liam Cohen running, or does Liam Cohen want to run, given that his mentor in Sean McVay ran 11 personnel in the first half of the NFC title game 14% of the time. He ran 12 or 13 almost 50 some odd % of the time. A lot of tight ends on the football field. Does Liam Cohen follow that trend? So Cuevas is interesting because at Alabama, he was known for more of being a blocker, just 4 touchdowns this season, 37 catches. Go back to his second season at Cal Poly, though. 58 catches, 6 touchdowns. Can be a pass catching threat. Justin Jolly is a name you're going to hear a lot about. NC State, first team All-ACC, had 7 touchdowns this year. He is your traditional F tight end. How will he look as a blocker? That is my question there. Name that I was fascinated with in film study, just looking through over the last 24 hours. Sam Roush, 6'5", 259, Stanford. Stanford, not a lot to cheer about the last few years. Sorry, Andrew Luck. This is someone who can block. He can catch. He had 4 touchdowns in his 4 seasons at Stanford. He wears nerdy glasses. But in my opinion, if you can get him in like the 4th or the 5th, which right now the mock draft machines have him going in the 3rd, but I think he'll end up sliding and being there on day 3. Maybe he's a Hunter Long replacement, and you keep him in the well for a year or 2. And you say, you know what? His production at Stanford wasn't that great because, well, he was playing at Stanford. They didn't have much around him. Briefly, safety. Bud Clark. I haven't done a ton of work on the safeties, but Bud Clark is one of my favorite players in the entire draft out of TCU. He had 15 interceptions in 4 seasons, folks. He really was at college and at TCU, never left, never transferred for 6 years. So he's an older prospect. James Gladstone and company never shied away from that. He had 4 picks this season with 7 passes defended. Go back and watch that season opening win over Belichick in Carolina. This dude was everywhere, 6'1", 185 pounds. He is the definition of turn on the tape. I don't care that he's 24, 25 years old. Just turn on the tape. This dude can ball. I'm still doing some work on safeties. I know a bunch of the subscribers at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook have sent me some names to watch. If you have some more names to watch, be sure to leave them in the chat. We're speeding through because we've got Talent Talks coming up here momentarily on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network with yours truly, Richard Miller, Cam Oriole, ASUN Player of the Week, leading scorer in the ASUN, set to join us alongside men's basketball coach Bobby Kennan. Briefly, offensive line. Told y'all we'd have some more Hawkeye shout outs. First and foremost, I got to read this tweet from Scott Pioli because it just warmed my heart so much. Scott Pioli, former Patriots executive, NFL Network personality. He also does some stuff for Iowa. So one of the many things I love about my Iowa family is how they genuinely support each other. I'm at the Senior Bowl this week preparing for the draft. Spent time with Max Llewellyn, who we discussed earlier on the pod. Go back and listen in case you missed it. Jennings Dunker and Bo Stevens while sporting my Iowa women's basketball hoodie. As I approach Max, he goes, "Yeah, man, love the sweatshirt. 8th in the country now, right?" My response, heck yeah, I love Coach Jan. Side note, I'm attending meetings. These 3 are here 15 minutes early to every meeting. I sit in the meeting. They're the ones asking the questions and engaging. 2 things, success is not happenstance, and Kirk Ferentz always prepares his players how to be pros. These guys get it. And you guys know when it comes to offensive line. We're going to talk about Cal being DBU. We know who the real OLU is out there in Iowa City. Jennings Dunker, right tackle, but a lot of people believe he's going to kick inside the guard. He has an opportunity to make some money, though, improve. He can be a pass-protecting tackle, and he has that versatility. His beard and mustache are also fantastic in the mullet. Just go look him up. Google Jennings Dunker with a G. Bo Stevens, one of the fastest rising prospects at the offensive line, in the offensive line group, 310 pounds, 6'5", was a guard this year, but a lot of folks believe when all is said and done in terms of pass blocking and run blocking, honestly, like, I don't know why this just came to me, but I'm going to end with this. Cole Van Lanen, how it was just like, wow, like, look at all this, like preseason 2024. Wow, he's the highest graded Jaguar in pass blocking. Wow, he's the highest graded Jaguar in run blocking too. Like, that's Bo Stevens. Like, people are like, oh, wow, maybe he actually was the glue of that Iowa offensive line. And also he can play either guard spot and maybe even snap or 2, if you needed him in relief. Yeah. So Bo Stevens, opportunity to make himself some money this week. Jennings Dunker, an opportunity to prove himself. Kalen Rutledge will be the apple of everyone's eye, the Georgia Tech offensive lineman. We'll end with this. This man told the Draft Network last week, quote, "I'm a damn football player. I'm a mauler." I know a lot of you want a mauler on the interior of that Jaguars offensive line. Maybe Kalen Rutledge, the Georgia Tech product, is that guy. Had a lot of fun today. Thanks to Jake Asman again for joining us live from Mobile as we ran through the litany of prospects that will be in Mobile this week for the Panini Senior Bowl. And of course, a whole lot more draft talk to come in the weeks ahead here on Club 904. Talent Talks comes your way coming up next here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. Tons of guests from UNF Athletics, so don't go anywhere. Until next Tuesday, we